The story begins in the kingdom of Fornia, where upon turning 13, a royal family member is said to receive a gift from the goddess. Unfortunately, that does not turn out to be the case for the protagonist. A few moments earlier, on the palace grounds of the Fornia kingdom, the third prince, Theodulf Forian, is sparring against a maid. He struggles to block each of her strikes. The maid notices this and remarks that he is backing away. While continuously fending off her attacks, Theo responds by asking what other option he has. Hearing this, the maid rushes forward and says that if he keeps focusing on defending, he will eventually leave an opening. And right after saying that, she lands a strike, causing him to let out a pained groan. After sparring for a while, Theo lies on the ground, panting from exhaustion. The maid then suggests they end the practice session for the day, especially since he also has the gift conferment ceremony later. Theo agrees, and with a beaming smile he tells the maid, named Layla, that she is truly incredible. As she blushes slightly at his words, Theo continues complimenting her, saying that not only is she skilled with a sword, but she is also an amazing cook and good at housework. On top of that, she is a former S-rank adventurer who is well-versed in etiquette and also beautiful to the boots. She then reaches out her hand and thanks him for his kind words, but insists that she believes he is more incredible than she is. As he takes her hand to get up, Theo replies that this isn't true, as he can't even use magic. Just then, Layla quickly pulls him up as a large amount of water suddenly crashes down where Theo was just lying. The person responsible then sarcastically says he only wanted to help Theo wash off his sweat, but he missed. That person turns out to be Niels Forin, the second prince of the kingdom. With a smug expression, he asks Theo if he is still practicing swordsmanship despite lacking any talent. As Theo glares at him, Niels continues, questioning what the point is when royals are destined to receive a gift from the goddess. Hearing this, Theo asks what he is trying to imply. In response, Niels raises his hand and conjures a massive fireball that emits a blinding light. He then says that there's no need for effort when one can receive incredible powers like this. After showing off, he retracts the fireball and remarks that the gift is said to match the receiver's personality. Since that's the case, he wonders aloud what kind of gift Theo is going to receive and says it will be worthless. With that, he turns to leave, saying how excited he is for today's conferment ceremony. As Theo grows irritated, realizing that Niels came only to mock him, Layla suddenly hugs him from behind. She believes that if what Niels said is true, then Theo is sure to receive a wonderful gift. Hearing this, Theo feels slightly reassured and thanks her. Filled with new confidence, he believes that he will definitely receive a wonderful gift at tonight's ceremony. However, later that night, in front of everyone, Theo didn't receive any gift from the goddess. While Theo stands in shock, the entire ceremonial hall erupts in whispers, with nobles questioning whether he is truly royalty. Devastated and wondering why he didn't receive a skill, Theo hears Niels burst into laughter at the situation. He sarcastically apologizes, and while still giggling, says that he knows this is a sacred occasion, but he simply can't help himself, because Theo is just too much of a riot. Their father then tells Niels to quiet down, to which he responds with a bow and an apology. Their father, the current king of the Fornia kingdom, Gauss Discard Forian, remarks that it almost seems as if Theo is deliberately trying to disappoint him. With that, he declares that he does not want anyone who has been forsaken by the goddess to remain in the royal palace. He then wonders aloud how he should deal with Theo. Hearing this, Theo is deeply shocked, wondering what the king means by such a statement. Niels then places a hand on Theo's head and suggests that their father go with the proposal he mentioned earlier. He believes it is a perfect fate for this so-called talentless hack, to which the king agrees and decides to proceed with it. With that, he declares that from this moment on, Theodulf Forian is to be appointed as the Lord of the Land of Death. The announcement shocks everyone, and chatter fills the palace hall while Theo tries to protest the decision. He points out that the Land of Death is shrouded in noxious air, making it impossible to grow anything there. On top of that, powerful monsters roam the region, making it even more uninhabitable for humans. He questions how he is supposed to live there, let alone rule it. In response, the king yells at him, calling him a talentless hack, and commands him not to talk back. He reminds Theo that no one can defy the king's order, and instructs him to gather his belongings and head to the Land of Death immediately. Hearing this, Theo realizes the king is essentially banishing him from the kingdom. As he stands lost in thought, Niels approaches, placing a hand on his shoulder and remarking that it truly is a shame. With a smug expression, he wishes Theo luck in surviving the land of death, and adds that in the meantime, he will become the next king. After saying that, he walks away laughing, and all Theo can do is obey the king's command. The next day, after packing all his belongings into a carriage, Theo prepares to leave. All his servants and the citizens he befriended come to see him off as he departs from the royal capital. As expected, neither his father nor his brother is anywhere in sight. Setting that aside, he bids everyone farewell from the carriage window. Afterward, as he closes the window, he reminds himself that from now on, he is completely on his own. Now that he thinks about it, he realizes he hasn't seen Layla among the servants, and wonders if perhaps she is running late. Just as he wishes he could have said goodbye to her, a sudden voice speaks out of nowhere, saying that they are right there. Looking in front of him, he sees Layla inside the carriage with him. After a brief moment of shock, he yells, asking why she is here. Layla bluntly replies that she will be wherever he is. Theo quickly reminds her that he is going to the land of death. Hearing this, she starts to say that they love, then corrects herself, saying they trust each other deeply, and she is confident they can overcome anything together. Still, Theo refuses, saying that he is the only one who was ordered to go, so she does not have to. But Layla cuts him off, asking what he is saying. She is his maid, so it doesn't matter whether it's hell or the demon realm, she will follow him. Pinning him to the wall of the carriage, she declares firmly that she will go wherever he goes. Taken aback, Theo asks her one last time if she is sure about this. Without missing a beat, she replies that she is, as this is what she wants. Hearing this, Theo slightly blushes and genuinely thanks her. As Layla quietly muses aloud that she will finally get to be alone with him, Theo barely catches it and asks if she said something. Layla quickly denies it, but Theo is certain he heard something. She insists it was just his imagination. On his journey to the land of death, Theo stops at a town, as the destination is very far away and requires switching carriages. Though he admits to feeling a bit nervous, having Layla with him gives him peace of mind. Setting that aside, after doing some shopping, they board another carriage, which is not as luxurious as the previous one. As he continues his journey, he wonders why he did not receive a gift. While pondering this, he recalls a shocking truth. He is actually not from this world, and wonders if that might be the reason. He further remembers that, in his original world, he was a salaryman who worked until very late at night. He was a wage slave who continued working even after returning home. One day, he was especially exhausted, so much so that he even apologized to a pole after bumping into it. Despite his fatigue, all he could think about was work, and he sighed, hoping he could at least take a shower after finishing everything. He also wished he could play some games, as he used to be really into a crafting game during his school days. But after entering adulthood, he no longer had time for such things. As he thinks about it, he becomes so tired that he struggles to keep his eyes open. With his vision growing increasingly blurry, he collapses, and everything goes black. When he opens his eyes again, he finds himself in an unfamiliar place, where shallow water stretches across a vast land, reflecting the sky like a perfect mirror. Confused, he looks around and asks where he is. Just then, a winged woman appears and welcomes him to what she calls the realm of the gods. She introduces herself as the goddess Vesta, and informs him of the unfortunate news that he has passed away. Shocked by this, he questions if he is truly dead, to which the goddess offers her condolences. With that said, she gets straight to the point and informs him that he will be reincarnated into another world. Even more surprised, he tries to ask questions, but the goddess, wearing a troubled expression, tells him to refrain from doing so. She explains that all gods have their own complicated reasons for these matters, and upon hearing this, he decides not to press further. Setting that aside, she informs him that upon reincarnation, he will be granted a special power of his choice. Surprised to learn this, he realizes that he really is going to another world. Since he will be living in an unfamiliar place, he prefers to have a convenient skill. Recalling the game he used to play, he tells the goddess that he would like the power of crafting. To better describe the ability, he requests a crafting power just like the one in the game he was addicted to during his youth. His request makes the goddess grin, and she begins the process of his reincarnation, while also granting him his desired ability. Now, recalling that event, He wonders if the reason he did not receive a gift is because he already possesses that power. While faintly hearing Layla call his name, he continues his thoughts. He realizes that he had forgotten about his crafting skill after being reincarnated as a prince, since he never really needed to craft anything. With that realization, he opens his eyes and sees Layla, who asks him to get up as they have arrived at their destination. Judging by the angle he is looking at her, Theo realizes that his head is resting in her lap. He quickly gets up and asks why he was sleeping there. As usual, Layla bluntly replies that he is the one who fell asleep on it, upon hearing which Theo apologizes, and Layla accepts it. She explains that she wanted to look at his sleeping face a bit longer, but the coachman was getting rather angry. As she says this, the coachman angrily asks how long they plan to keep him waiting. He complains that he doesn't want to stay in this miserable place any longer. Hearing this, Theo tells Layla that she should have woken him up earlier. After getting off the carriage and taking out their belongings, Theo and Layla apologize to the angry coachman. As the coachman leaves, Theo looks around and immediately understands why the man was so upset. This place truly deserves to be called the Land of Death. It is so barren that not a single tree has any leaves. Though he knows he is stating the obvious, he can't help but remark that there really is no one here. Layla responds that it's to be expected, as this land isn't suitable for humans to live in. Setting that aside, Theo realizes that, since there are no houses, they will have to sleep outside. But Layla tells him not to worry, saying that if they cuddle together, she's certain it will keep them warm. However, Theo informs her that it won't be enough in a place like this. Hearing this, Layla becomes a bit gloomy, and seeing that, Theo asks if she was being serious. Ignoring his question, she begins muttering to herself that since it's just the two of them, she'll have plenty of opportunities in the future. Setting that aside, Theo decides they should secure a place to build their house right away. As he says this, he recalls the ability he requested from the goddess and decides to try it out. But before that, he asks Layla if she can chop down some nearby trees. She replies that she can, and telling him to leave it to her, she gets into a sword stance. Then in an instant, she easily slices through dozens of trees with her eyes closed. As she sheathes her sword and asks if that much is enough, Theo replies that it is and thanks her. He is both very surprised and somewhat expecting it, considering she is a former adventurer after all. Layla then asks him what he plans to do with the logs, to which he informs her that he will try to build a house. After saying that, he tries to move a large rock, but as he fails, Layla steps in and easily picks it up, shocking him. Thanks to her help, he is able to organize all the logs and decides to begin building. But then Layla picks up a log and asking if he plans to put them together, tells him to leave it to her. Somewhat surprised by her strength, Theo tells her to stop and let him handle it instead. As she tries to insist, Theo approaches the logs, and after telling her to watch closely, he places his hand on them. Though he did receive a crafting gift from the goddess, he hasn't tried it at all, let alone attempted to create something as large as a house. Still, he trusts the goddess and believes it will work. So as he begins focusing and visualizing what he wants to create, a glowing grid appears on the ground. While Layla watches in confusion, the logs automatically start splitting and turning into timber boards, which begin stacking one on top of another. Just like that, an entire house is built in a matter of seconds, using Theo's special skill called autocraft. While Theo is very glad it worked, Layla is too stunned to say anything. She then snaps out of it and asks Theo what this power is. In response, he averts his gaze and reveals that the reason he didn't receive a gift at the ceremony is because he already had one, long before he even knew it. Hearing this, Layla quickly hugs him, saying she knew something was strange when he couldn't receive a gift. As his face is buried in her chest, he blushes and struggles to breathe. Seeing this, she quickly lets him go and apologizes, saying she couldn't contain herself. Taking a deep breath, Theo tells her it's fine, and suggests they go inside the house. Upon entering, they discover that Theo's ability has not only created the house, but also all the furniture inside. Even he is surprised by how well built everything is, as no one would guess it was all made from stone and wood. After inspecting the kitchen, Theo enters the bedroom, where there is a bed frame but no mattress or pillows. Seeing this, he realizes that he can't create everything without the necessary materials. He then wonders if he can use his clothes as a substitute. Thus, he decides to give it a try, and after taking some clothes out of the luggage, he uses autocraft on them. And it actually worked, as his clothes transformed into a soft mattress and pillows. Overjoyed, he jumps on the bed, saying they'll be able to sleep warmly. Then suddenly Layla appears in a nightdress and looms over him. Surprised, Theo quickly bolts upright and asks what she is wearing. She calmly replies that it's her nightwear. She then states that since it's getting very late, she would like to get some sleep. Hearing this, Theo tiptoes away, saying he will make another bed for her, but she questions what he's talking about. She then zooms toward him, insisting she should always be in a position to protect him. So it's ideal if they share one bed, and she believes it will also be warmer if they sleep together. More importantly, she will be able to monitor his body temperature. Therefore, she sees no reason for them to sleep separately. As he is backed against a wall, she asks him if he understands, and he finally gives in and accepts it. Later that night, Theo softly calls out to Layla, and she responds by asking what's wrong. He then asks if she isn't a bit too close, to which she replies that he's just imagining it. This isn't true, as he can feel her entire body pressed against him from behind. Flustered, he quickly gets up and says she really is way too close, but Layla still insists he's imagining it. Since she is so persistent, Theo gives up and lies back down. This makes Layla beam with happiness as she continues pressing her body against him. Just like that, their first day in the land of death comes to an end. Theo believes he has made it this far thanks to Layla and his gift, and he is certain that as long as she is with him, he will be fine. But before he can even finish this thought, it is interrupted by a loud thud. As the entire house begins to shake, Theo and Layla quickly get up, asking what's going on. He then gets out of bed and rushes to the door, saying he'll take a look. But Layla tells him to stop, as it's not safe outside, so she will go with him. Despite her warning, Theo steps out and is shocked by what he sees. Charging toward him at incredible speed is a minotaur. It closes the distance before he can react and strikes with such force that a cloud of dust erupts around them. As the dust settles, it's revealed that Layla has saved Theo, blocking the minotaur's attack with her sword. She asks him if he's okay, to which he replies that he is and thanks her. She then tells him to stay back, declaring she will handle this monster. Unsheathing her sword, she glares at the minotaur and demands to know how it dares to ruin her honeymoon with Theo. Ignoring her statement as Theo warns her that it is dangerous, he realizes she is strong enough to defeat it. He knows she is capable of handling the situation. She is a former adventurer after all. Yet he still questions himself, whether he is really going to let her handle it while he runs away every time a monster appears. Not wanting that to happen, he steps forward and tells Layla to get back because he is going to take care of it. As she warns him again that it is dangerous and he might get hurt, Theo assures her that he has it under control. He then explains his plan to reuse the house's materials to create something. Following through, he activates his autocraft skill, which instantly breaks the house down into raw materials, startling even the monster. While the minotaur is distracted by the floating materials, Theo begins visualizing what he wants to create. Since the goddess told him he can create anything that exists, he believes the sky is the limit as long as he is creative enough. By focusing, he manages to create a giant double-headed axe mounted on a siege machine, which can be dropped by pulling a lever. As the minotaur notices it and charges to attack again, Theo slightly pulls the lever in preparation. When it gets close enough, he pushes the lever with full force, bringing the massive axe crashing down onto the minotaur. Afterward, when the monster shows no sign of moving, Theo clenches his fist in triumph, thrilled that it worked even better than expected. Suddenly, Layla lifts him up and excitedly praises him, calling what he did truly incredible. As Theo blushes from the unexpected gesture, she continues to express how amazing he is. When Theo was exiled from the capital, he had no idea what to do. But now, he feels a strange excitement, standing in a barren land with the gift to create anything as long as he has the necessary materials. It feels just like the game he used to play when he was young, though he knows things will not go as smoothly as they did in the game, and that many ordeals await him. But still, he tells Layla that he has found something he wants, and when she asks what it is, he explains that he will use his power to reclaim the land of death. Upon hearing this, she begins twirling around, calling it a wonderful goal, while Theo asks her if she can put him down already. The next day, Theo wakes up and opens the windows. Even after spending their first night here, he still finds it hard to believe he is actually in this place. Setting that aside, after last night's battle, he immediately reconstructed the house. Now, with his goal to reclaim the land, he wonders what he should start with today. Later, after getting freshened up, he heads to the dining room, where Layla is preparing breakfast. As he begins eating, he beams with happiness, finding the food delicious. But Layla apologizes, saying the food isn't as fancy as what they had in the royal palace. Theo quickly assures her that's not true. She managed to create such a tasty meal using only the rations they brought from the palace, which makes her truly amazing. Happy to hear that, she offers her portion in case he's still hungry and tries to feed him with a spoon, telling him to open his mouth. But he politely declines, saying she needs to eat too, and that he's had enough. Changing the subject, Theo points out that the rations won't last long, so they need to do something about it. Layla then suggests they start by creating a farm. Theo finds it a great idea, as once they have a steady food supply, they might be able to increase the land's population. So he decides to start building the farm once he finishes eating, to which Layla agrees. A few moments later, Theo and Layla come out of the house to begin farming. However, upon seeing the desolate land, they are reminded that this is the land of death, a place utterly unsuitable for growing crops. Layla mentions hearing that a disaster once struck this region, contaminating the soil with noxious air. Even the kingdom had once attempted to reclaim the land, but ultimately failed. Realizing this, Theo understands how difficult his goal truly is, yet he remains determined and refuses to give up, resolving to do everything he can. He then uses his auto-crafting skill on sticks and stones to create a stone hoe, still amazed by how efficient and convenient this ability is. Afterward, Theo and Layla till as much of the land as they can. Theo grows so exhausted that he must take a break while Layla continues working. By the end of the day, they finish their task by fertilizing the soil. With everything completed, Theo can only hope that their efforts will allow them to grow some crops. Having worked tirelessly all day, Theo feels utterly drained and surprised. He never imagined farming could be this exhausting. Setting that thought aside, he says he wants to take a bath. Upon hearing this, Layla agrees, saying she would love that too. But she reminds him that the local water is contaminated, so they need to be frugal with the clean water they brought, to which Theo agrees. However, that's not their only concern. They also need to secure their food supply and defend themselves from potential monster attacks. Despite expecting such difficulties, Theo still feels overwhelmed as the weight of these challenges piles up in the land of death. Later that night, while trying to sleep, Theo finds himself bothered by another problem. Layla is sleeping far too close to him. Unable to endure it any longer, he quickly sits up and prepares to suggest once again that they sleep in separate beds. But before he can say anything, he notices she is already fast asleep. This surprises him, as it has only been a few seconds since they lay down. But it makes sense, as she had woken up early to cook for him and worked even harder than he did on the farm. As he reflects on the day's events, he begins to question whether he was actually useful at all. Looking at Layla, who has supported him so much, he resolves to work harder too. He decides to get some rest so he can work twice as hard as Layla tomorrow. As he falls asleep, he hears the voice of the goddess calling out to him by his past life name. Then, remembering his new name, she calls him Theo, at which point he opens his eyes. Upon waking, the first thing he sees is the goddess standing right in front of him, greeting him with a good morning, which startles him. Looking around and recognizing the place, he panics, asking if he has died again. The goddess quickly assures him that he hasn't, as this time his body is in perfect shape. She then bows deeply and sincerely apologizes, explaining that the current situation is entirely her fault. Shocked, Theo urges her to slow down, but she continues, saying that because she couldn't bestow a gift upon him when he turned 13, he ended up being exiled. Upon hearing this, Theo asks if the reason she couldn't give him a gift is, but before he can finish, she confirms that it's because he already possesses autocraft. She further explains that if a human were to receive more than one gift, their heart would explode, and fluids would burst from every hole in their body. Hearing this, a shiver runs down Theo's spine. The goddess apologizes once more, but Theo tells her to stop. With a bright smile, he expresses his sincere gratitude and thanks her for giving him such an exciting gift. Hearing these words of appreciation coming from him, despite being placed in a dangerous situation, brings tears to the goddess's eyes. She rushes to hug Theo, startling him as he feels a sense of déjà vu. However, she suddenly pauses midway, remembering something, and then opens a portal from which she retrieves an object to give him as a token of apology. After taking it out, she presents what appears to be an iron bar to Theo. When he asks what it is, She explains that it is god metal, a special metal imbued with the power of the gods. She then whispers to him that the gods are forbidden from bringing it into the mortal realm, but he is allowed to have it. Shocked upon hearing this, he asks if she is sure he can possess something so valuable. In response, she gestures for him to quiet down and assures him that he can because he is special and her favorite as well. After saying this, she approaches him and saying she will give him a little bonus. She kisses him on the cheek. This leaves him utterly stunned, his face flushed bright red as steam practically rises from his body. The goddess then steps back and, laughing playfully, says it is her blessing and suggests he make good use of it. As his vision begins to blur, she wishes him the best of luck and says she will always be rooting for him. He then jolts upright and finds himself in bed, making him wonder if everything he saw was just a dream. As he starts blushing, thinking it was one heck of a dream, he suddenly notices something moving under the blanket. When he lifts it slightly, he finds Layla on top of him, drooling. Shocked, he asks her what she is doing, to which she casually replies that she isn't doing anything and brushes it off entirely. Still sitting on top of him, she asks about the hard object she has been feeling beneath her. Hearing this, Theo immediately realizes what she might be referring to, and his face turns bright red with embarrassment. He hurriedly explains that it's not what she thinks, that it's just a biological phenomenon and he isn't actually lusting after her. However, it turns out that the hard object she's feeling is the metal bar. Picking it up, she asks him what it is. Seeing it, Theo instantly recalls that it's the god metal and realizes that it wasn't a dream after all. Setting that aside, he feels extremely relieved that this is what Layla was talking about, and informs her that it's a gift. Moving on, Layla says that although she understands he just woke up, she has some bad news about the soil. It has reverted to its bone-dry state. Shocked, Theo questions why it has returned to the way it was, and wonders if it happened overnight. Seeing how barren the land is, he realizes that no matter how hard they try, it will be impossible to farm here. As he begins to feel overwhelmed, Layla picks up the hoe and suggests they start tilling again. Before he can respond, she begins working and proposes that they switch fertilizers and try everything they can. She believes that through this process, they can figure out which crops might actually grow here. Seeing her determination, Theo recalls the promise he made to himself the night before and decides to follow through. He then picks up a hoe as well and tells Layla to get some rest since she overworked herself yesterday. When she tries to argue that manual labor is her responsibility, Theo reminds her that he didn't train with her in swordsmanship just for show. This sudden change in his demeanor truly surprises Layla. Moving on, Theo points out that mindlessly tilling the land will accomplish nothing. He suggests they should start by finding the right fertilizer. As he says this, he picks up some soil and silently wishes he knew more about its properties. Suddenly, a system window similar to one from a video game appears, displaying the soil's stats. The soil is ranked E, marked as the worst quality, and can only be purified through divine blessing. Utterly shocked by the appearance of the window, Theo freezes. Noticing his reaction, Layla asks what's wrong. When he points at the window for her to see, it seems she is unable to perceive it. Setting that aside, Theo, despite having been a gamer, feels confused by the floating window appearing in real life and questions what exactly it is. However, since he can now see detailed information about the soil that he couldn't yesterday, he wonders if this is the blessing the goddess granted him in his dream. Believing that to be the case, he thanks the goddess for bestowing such a convenient skill. Since the window states the land can only be purified with divine blessing, Theo worries that they won't be able to grow crops until then. As he begins brainstorming about divine blessings, he recalls something that might help: the god metal the goddess gave him. Holding it in his hand, another system window appears, revealing the metal bar's stats. The god metal is described as a divine quality, X-rank item, a special metal created by the gods. It also states that tools made from this metal are granted a divine blessing. Surprised by the mention of tools, Theo realizes this is exactly what he needs. He believes he can use the god metal to purify the contaminated soil. Suspecting the goddess foresaw this, he concludes that's why she granted him both the analysis ability and the god metal. Now that he has a plan, Theo uses autocraft to revert the hoe back into raw materials. He then uses autocraft again to combine the god metal with a wooden stick. When the crafting process finishes, he is left with a divine hoe. As Layla watches, she asks what it is. Theo tells her to observe closely and strikes the ground with the divine hoe. Instantly, the earth emits a blinding glow, shocking him. After the glow fades, the ground appears unchanged. But when he picks up the soil with his hand, another system window appears, revealing that the soil has now transformed into divine soil, EX rank, and divine quality. It states that those who live on this soil receive the goddess's blessing and can grow exceptional crops. Overjoyed that it actually worked, Theo tosses the soil around in excitement. He then calls out to Layla and tells her they can purify the land using this hoe and grow crops again. Surprised and delighted, she rushes over to hug him, calling him her prince. But before she can, Theo embraces her first, catching her off guard and making her face turn bright red. He believes that he has managed to turn the situation around, all thanks to the goddess and Layla. With a bright smile, he silently thanks the goddess from the bottom of his heart. Seeing his expression, Layla's face practically explodes with steam as she overloads with happiness. Noticing this, Theo asks if she's okay. When she doesn't respond, he assumes she must be tired and decides to carry her to bed. With that, one of Theo's objectives, reclaiming the land of death, is complete. Meanwhile, the goddess Vesta relaxes in a bath with a magical sphere floating beside her. Inside the sphere, she watches Theo while humming softly. Just then, another goddess appears and asks if she's still watching that boy. The other goddess is named Athena. Upon noticing her, Vesta remarks that Theo is amazing. As Vesta rises from the bath, commenting on how Theo turned the god metal she gave him into a hoe, Athena notices something she lacks. She then insists that Theo is still no match for the hero she has chosen. Hearing this, Vesta points out that Athena is a shameless lolicon who always picks cute girls as her heroes. Athena retorts that her heroes just happen to be cute, and adds that she does not want a shcon calling her a lolicon. Still, she agrees that Theo is someone worth keeping an eye on, mainly because he seems to have a connection with the hero she chose. Shocked by this, Vesta questions how a die-hard Theo stan like herself could have missed that. Hearing the word stan, Athena asks her if she picked up another strange term from the mortal realm. In response, Vesta tells her not to bother her, as she doesn't want to miss anything else from now on. Watching Theo through the magic sphere as he studies, Vesta wishes him good luck and says she will always root for him. The next day, Theo reaches out to a giant rock and activates autocraft on it. The night before, he read records of the kingdom's attempts to reclaim the land of death. According to those records, the noxious air only contaminates the surface, which means everything underground should be safe. Testing this theory, he uses autocraft on some stones to create a well, from which water immediately begins to overflow. He then fills a wooden mug and uses his analysis skill on the water. The system confirms that the water is rank C, good quality, ice cold, and safe to drink. Having completed another objective in his quest to reclaim the land, Theo and Layla cheer. Now that the water source is secured, they just need to finish tilling the land, and after sowing seeds, water them to grow crops. However, the task turns out to be much more difficult than Theo expected, as the land is too vast, and he grows exhausted after hours of tilling. Layla then brings him some water, but he declines, saying he just needs a short break. Hearing this, she picks up the divine hoe and decides to help. But Theo refuses, reminding her that she fainted yesterday from overworking. As Layla tries to explain that wasn't the reason, Theo cuts her off, firmly insisting that she rest. He then begins lecturing her about the dangers of overwork, stating it is not something to take lightly. His reasoning is valid, as he died from overwork in his past life, and even Layla can feel the weight of his words. That said, he admits he isn't certain he can do everything by himself, and wishes he could create a tractor, but he lacks the materials. Layla says that although she doesn't know what a tractor is, she believes they should get help from the royal palace. Theo agrees, but points out that this isn't a place where just anyone can move in right now. More importantly, they'll also need cattle, and he asks where they'll get them. Layla bluntly suggests that he just create them with autocraft. Hearing this, Theo objects, saying it's morally wrong, and he's also afraid to attempt it, as he has no idea what price he might have to pay. Layla clarifies that it was just a joke, but Theo argues that it didn't sound like one when she said it. As he begins to call her unhinged, he suddenly realizes something and instead tells her that her idea is actually great. As he states that he will create something he does not have, Layla bluntly asks if he is planning to perform a human transmutation. Theo quickly denies it, explaining that he will not create living beings like humans or cattle. Instead, he intends to create something that can perform any task assigned to it. When Layla asks if it is what she thinks it is, Theo informs her that in order to create it, he will need a large quantity of stone and some magicite. Magicite is a stone infused with magical power, harvested from monsters. It is primarily used to enhance weapons, craft magical items, and even serve as a source of energy. Layla then falls to the ground and becomes deeply disheartened, realizing she does not possess what he requires. Considering herself a failure as a maid, she decides to make up for it by offering her body and begins unbuttoning her dress. Shocked, Theo immediately tells her to stop, reminding her that they still have magicite from the monster they defeated on their first night. This means they already have all the necessary materials, and all that remains is to create it. Theo then activates autocraft and begins creating something typically within the domain of an alchemist. But thanks to his skill, he is able to craft it as well. Once the creation process is complete, the result is revealed to be a golem. Layla is surprised to see it, and as Theo tells the golem that it is time to begin work in the fields, it suddenly turns toward him. Then without warning it dashes at him, terrifying Theo, who begins to question whether creating it was a mistake after all. However, his fear proves unfounded, as instead of attacking him, the golem lifts him onto its shoulder, leaving him stunned. Still alarmed, Layla grips the hilt of her sword and demands to know what the golem is trying to do to Theo. Theo quickly tells her to stop, assuring her that the golem does not appear to be hostile. The golem then spins playfully and starts walking. Seeing this, Layla notes that the golem seems to be fawning over Theo, which she says gives her even more reason not to tolerate it. When Theo asks why, she quietly mutters that she is jealous. Setting that aside, Theo is puzzled by the golem's behavior and wonders whether golems are supposed to have emotions. Layla speculates that because he created it using his unique skill rather than conventional methods, it may have developed emotions, which she finds astonishing. Theo agrees and remarks that he may have inadvertently performed a human transmutation after all. Regardless, he still considers it a success, so he asks the golem if it can till the land. The golem seems to happily accept the task, and after picking up a hoe, it quickly begins tilling the soil, which Theo finds amazing. The golem continues working the land with Theo on its shoulder, cheering it on while Layla observes. Once the tilling is completed in no time thanks to the golem, they sow the seeds and water them. Theo also builds a small house for the golem, where it now sleeps while he eats dinner. Layla believes their food supply issue will be resolved if everything continues smoothly. Theo agrees and looks forward to the coming months when the crops will finally grow. However, much to his surprise, the next day he finds the farm overflowing with fully grown crops ready for harvest and questions how they could have grown overnight. He knew that even out-of-season vegetables may grow due to the blessing's effect, but he never expected a harvest in a single day. Even so, he believes the success is thanks to the combined efforts of himself, Layla, and the golem, so he calls out to them. Together, they all share a high five as Theo proudly declares that their food supply issue is now resolved. With this, another quest is completed in his journey to reclaim the land of death. Seeing all the vegetables, Theo is now certain they can grow overnight thanks to the blessed soil. But as he holds a tomato in his hand, he remains unsure about its taste. Layla then offers to test it for poison herself, but Theo declines, having already confirmed through his analysis ability that it is safe. Now, with the system's confirmation, he decides to taste the tomato. Upon biting into it, the flavor explodes in his mouth, causing him to question what in the world is this, as the umami and sweetness are so intense, and it's so juicy that one could easily mistake it for meat, making him wonder if these are really vegetables. As Layla asks if everything is all right, he hands her the tomato and tells her to try it, insisting that they're unbelievably good. Surprised by his reaction, she accepts the tomato, and upon biting into it, she has the same reaction he did. She then questions what in the world these are, as they are far too delicious, to which Theo agrees. He points out that if it tastes this good raw, it should be even better when cooked. Hearing this, Layla folds her sleeves and with a serious expression, says she can't wait to cook the first vegetables Theo has grown. Seeing her reaction, Theo tells her she's being too dramatic. After harvesting more vegetables, Layla chops them and begins cooking. A few moments later, when she finishes, she thanks Theo for waiting and presents the dishes she has prepared. Corn soup with chickpeas, 5 types of vegetable tempura, multicolored steamed vegetables with miso sauce, and cabbage rolls. Overjoyed at the sight of such delicious dishes, Theo thanks Layla for her hard work and asks if they shall dig in. She replies that they should and sits down to eat with him. Upon taking the first bite, the flavors melt in their mouths, and they both question how something could be this delicious. They savor every bit of the soup, describing in detail just how tasty it is. Later, after finishing their meal, they step out of the house. Now that they have harvested and eaten the food, Theo still has one thing left to do. He calls out to the golem he created, whom he names Gorm, and asks if it has gathered the materials he requested. The golem responds happily, pointing out that it has collected everything, to which Theo gives his thanks. Layla then asks Theo why he calls the golem Gorm. Theo replies that it's simply the name he gave it, which the golem also seems to like. Since that's the case, Layla decides to call it Gorm as well and thanks it. But she also asks what he plans to do with all the materials. She wonders if he intends to build another house so he can live separately from her. Theo replies that, although he had considered it, he's actually planning to build something else. He then activates his autocraft skill and asks Layla, now that they have a water source, doesn't she want to wash away her fatigue? After saying this, he instantly creates an outdoor hot spring using his autocraft skill. Seeing it, Theo gets the feeling of a high-class Japanese inn and becomes overwhelmed with nostalgia, deeply moved by how long it's been since he last entered one. Layla, who is amazed by the hot spring, praises him for being able to create such a magnificent bath. Not only that, but he also created soap, using vegetable oil and a body sponge from sponge gourd. He then hands them to Layla, telling her to use them to clean herself up. After that, he proceeds to enter the men's bath and tells Layla they will see each other when they are done. However, for some reason, Layla does not respond as Theo enters the bath and undresses. As he sits on a stool saying he needs to clean up, Layla suddenly appears behind him, unclothed, and offers to assist. He instinctively agrees but quickly realizes the situation and tells her this is not the women's side. She calmly replies that separating baths by gender is unnecessary when it's just the two of them. She then begins helping him wash, stating it is her duty as his maid. As she leans in close to scrub his back, he becomes visibly flustered and asks her to leave. She refuses, claiming she cannot obey, even if it is an order. Theo then asks what happened to her earlier statements about being a servant. She responds by asking what the issue is, claiming that a certain level of physical interaction is normal between master and maid. Theo insists this goes far beyond acceptable boundaries. A few moments later, after she finishes washing him, the two sit together in the hot spring. Theo is still clearly shaken by what just occurred, while Layla, seemingly unfazed, simply remarks that the water feels nice. Theo quietly agrees. She then looks up and points at the sky, prompting him to look as well. When he does, he is surprised to see the night filled with stars. He finds the sight breathtaking and thinks there is no way he could have ever seen something like this in his previous life. He then calls out to Layla and tells her that he might not be the most dependable person, but he hopes she will stay by his side. She responds without hesitation, saying she absolutely will. Meanwhile, somewhere far from where Theo and Layla are, a beast girl notices their location due to the steam rising from the hot spring. Seeing the steam, she becomes very curious, as it is rare to encounter a human in this land. The next day, Theo gets up early in the morning to practice words with Layla. During the day, he checks the field and harvests the vegetables. Even though the soil is blessed, he does not allow himself to slack off. Later, before going to bed, he reads and organizes his thoughts and plans for the future. Currently, Theo is living his best life, but he still has one lingering concern. He cannot attract any citizens to this land. Although he is enjoying a stable and fulfilling life, this is not his ultimate goal. His goal is to reclaim the land, and to do that, he must first create a village. But even if he counts Grom as a citizen, it is still nowhere near enough to be called a village. Instead of going to sleep, he steps outside the house. As he sees the haunting surroundings, he is reminded once again that this is the land of death. This is precisely why no one lives here. If they did, they would automatically become his citizens. As he silently hopes that some traveler might wander into this land by chance, he suddenly hears a sound. Since the noise seems to be coming from the farm, Theo wonders if someone actually has wandered in. Still having a hard time believing it, he goes to check it out. However, instead of a human, he finds a giant wolf who also notices him. Terrified at the sight of the monster, Theo quickly yells out and panics, unsure of what to do. But then he notices that the giant wolf is not attacking him like the Minotaur had, and he senses something familiar. The wolf is radiating a divine aura similar to that of the goddess Vesta. Then, suddenly, the wolf speaks, telling him not to be wary, shocking Theo with the revelation that it can talk. The wolf introduces itself as Luna, a proud Fenrir, also known as the Divine Wolf. Theo is stunned to learn that it is a Fenrir, as they are giant wolves shrouded in divine power. These creatures are so legendary that there is little eyewitness evidence to prove their existence. But now that one stands before him, Theo begins to wonder how he is supposed to fight such a foe. Seeing his reaction, the Fenrir again tells him not to worry, saying it did not come here to fight. However, Theo remains on guard, and the Fenrir understands his fear, as it can't really blame him for being intimidated by its form. So it decides to do something about it and begins to glow intensely. The Fenrir then transforms into the beast girl who noticed the steam from the hot spring the night before. Now in this human form, the Fenrir, whose name is Luna, asks Theo if it is easier to talk to her like this. But Theo is even more shocked to see her turn into a human. Luna then apologizes for startling him and explains that she came to make a request. When he asks what it is, Luna says she would like to have some of his vegetables. Theo is very surprised to hear that this is all she wants, and since she does not appear to be hostile, he decides it's fine. He informs her that they had a big harvest, so she is more than welcome to take some. Overjoyed by his generosity, she asks if he truly means it. Theo then gathers some tomatoes in a basket and presents them to her, though he isn't sure if she will like them. Upon taking her first bite, she has a reaction similar to Theo and Layla's. She finds the tomato incredibly delicious and asks what this rich flavor is. She mentions that she hasn't eaten anything this delectable in 1,000 years, which shocks Theo. She then explains that the land wasn't always contaminated by noxious air. 1,000 years ago, it was teeming with excellent crops, though none as tasty as what she is eating now. However, a great war ravaged the land, turning it into a wasteland filled with noxious air. This surprises Theo, as he was told the noxious air was the result of a natural disaster. Since she knows so much, Theo asks Luna if she has been living in this land for 1,000 years. When she confirms, he asks why she doesn't move elsewhere, given the land's poor condition. She replies that this place is her home, and it is very precious to her, so she cannot simply abandon it just because it became a wasteland. This is why she is so happy that he has made the land beautiful once again. She then asks for his name, and he realizes he hasn't given it yet. He tells her his name is Theodulf Foreign. Luna expresses her gratitude for what he has done to restore the land, and for letting her eat something so delicious. She decides to thank him properly, and when he declines, saying she doesn't have to, she places her hand on his forehead, confusing him. She tells him there is only one thing she will not compromise on: returning favors, as it is part of being a Fenrir. Since there is no harm in it, she tells him to just accept it. Then, out of nowhere, she kisses him on the forehead, shocking him. She then informs him that she has given him the Fenrir's favor and apologizes, saying it is all she can offer for now. However, Theo doesn't respond, overwhelmed by the kiss. Seeing this, Luna giggles, then pats his head. After saying that she hasn't felt this delighted in a long time, she turns to leave. Watching her leave, Theo recalls their conversation about her having lived in this land for 1,000 years. After thinking about it, he tells her to stop, and as she pauses, he asks if she would like to become a citizen of his domain. Hearing this out of nowhere surprises Luna, and after a brief pause, she teases Theo by asking if he wants to rein in this Fenrir lady. Theo immediately clarifies that he does not mean it that way. In response, Luna pats his head, saying she is just joking and that he doesn't need to be so serious. She then asks him to give her some time, as she has circumstances of her own. Theo understands that it is a sudden request and tells her to take all the time she needs. With that, she decides to leave, saying she will stop by another day. She also promises that the next time they meet, she will give him an even better present and tells him to look forward to it. Hearing this, he starts blushing, wondering what kind of present she could possibly mean that would be even better than the one she already gave him. With that, Luna shifts into her wolf form and bids him farewell. As she leaves, she finds herself believing that Theo might be destined for greatness. Since Luna departs before Layla wakes up, Theo decides to keep it a secret from her, knowing she might overreact. A few days later, Theo is harvesting crops as usual when he suddenly hears footsteps. As he turns toward the sound, he discovers an injured girl who asks for help before collapsing in front of them. Shocked and concerned, Theo asks the girl if she is all right, and quickly instructs Layla to bring the first aid kit. Later, they bring the girl into the house to treat her wounds, while Grom watches from the window. The girl regains consciousness and upon sitting up, questions where she is. Theo, who has just entered the room, notices she is awake and asks how she is feeling. She replies that she feels fine and asks who he is. Theo then introduces himself and Layla, explaining that she fainted near his farm, so they brought her inside to treat her injuries. The girl thanks them for tending to her wounds and introduces herself as Aisha. Now that he knows her name, Theo sits on a nearby stool and asks why she came here. Upon hearing this, she quickly remembers her reason for coming and says she must hurry, attempting to get out of bed, but she is struck by a wave of throbbing pain throughout her body. Theo tells her to stay put, as she still needs to rest. He then asks Layla if they have any of the healing herbs they brought from the palace. Layla replies that they do and goes to get them right away. She returns with a glass of water and some healing herbs, which can be blended to create a powerful medicine for treating injuries. Crafting such medicine usually requires advanced knowledge and skill, but Theo believes he might be able to do it using his gift. He activates his autocraft ability on the herbs and the glass. To his surprise, it worked, and he successfully created a healing potion. Astonished, Aisha asks what just happened. Theo then asks her to drink the potion, assuring her she will feel much better. Though hesitant at first, she accepts and drinks the potion immediately, and it begins healing her body almost instantly. Now fully healed, she is amazed that she no longer feels any pain. She then asks Theo if he is a wizard or an alchemist, to which he replies that he is something similar. She gets up from the bed, saying she cannot thank him enough and promises to return the favor one day. Hearing this, Theo asks if she is already planning to leave, but instead of answering, she asks him if this place is close to Fornos. Theo asks her if she's talking about Fornos, the fortress city used for defense against the monsters of the Land of Death. As he tries to estimate the distance in his head, Layla informs him that it is dozens of miles away from the Land of Death. Shocked to hear this, Aisha asks if they are currently in the Land of Death, to which Theo replies affirmatively. Upon learning this, Aisha begins to tear up, realizing that she went in the wrong direction and ended up here by mistake. She then starts wondering aloud what she should do. As if she does not hurry, everyone in her village is going to die. Sensing the seriousness of her situation, Theo asks if she can tell them what happened. Aisha then reveals that her village is currently under attack by goblins, news that shocks both Layla and Theo. Goblins are described as small monsters that are weak individually, which is why they often act in groups. They are also intelligent enough to understand human speech. Aisha explains that she is a resident of Moa village, located in the territory of Vitoa. A few days ago, a group of goblins came to their village. Since the villagers were not capable of fighting them off, the goblins took advantage of the situation and began demanding food. Over time, their demands increased. When the villagers protested, saying they would starve if they gave away any more food, the goblins began demanding that the women's be handed over to them. This shocks Theo, as goblins can breed with human women, so it is easy to imagine the horrors that would follow if the villagers complied. The villagers refused the demand, but the goblins threatened to kill them if they do not obey. In desperation, Aisha fled the village to seek help. After hearing her explanation, Theo asks why she was heading to Fornos, as it would be faster to ask the Lord of Vitoa for help. Aisha explains that she already tried, but the Lord told her he had no time to help a backwater village. Hearing this, Theo recalls that he once heard the Lord of Vitoa is a tyrant who imposes heavy taxes without concern for his people. Not only that, but even when his own domain suffered from famine, he did nothing to help. Aisha then turns to leave, thanking Theo for looking after her. But as Theo tells her to wait, she turns around in confusion. He then leads her to a large storehouse filled with various resources. He remarks that it is fortunate he stocked up these materials, to which Layla agrees. Aisha then asks what he plans to do with them, to which Theo tells her to watch closely. Recently, he discovered that his autocraft skill has a subskill very similar to one from the game he remembers. The subskill is called Inventory. As he activates it, a black hole-like phenomenon appears and begins sucking everything around it. Just like that, everything inside the storehouse vanishes into the black hole. Shocked, Aisha asks what happened to all the materials, as they simply disappeared. Theo tells her that this too is a form of magic, just like the one he used earlier. He explains that he stored everything in another dimension he created. Setting that aside, he asks if she will take him and Layla to her village. As she turns around in confusion, Theo explains that since going to Fornos will take too much time, they have decided to go directly to the village and help its people themselves. Later, with Aisha guiding the way, they head toward her village riding Grom. Aisha then asks Theo if he is really sure about this, as it is going to be very dangerous. Theo reassures her, telling her not to worry and to leave everything to him. Even though the goblins are not far from their current location, Theo feels no fear. Instead, he is filled with courage and clenches his fist, ready to face them. He then recalls the Fenrir's favor he received from Luna, and wonders if he can examine its effects using his analysis ability. With that thought, he uses the ability on himself, which reveals his stats. Among the descriptions of his various abilities and favors, he also finds the details of the Fenrir's favor. This favor enhances his leg strength, grants him the willpower to overcome fear, and causes any type of wolf creature to surrender unconditionally. Theo is very surprised by the description, but what particularly catches his attention is the part about willpower. Realizing this is the reason for his current courage, he silently thanks Luna. Just then, they get close enough to see the village in the distance, and as Aisha points it out, she notices the villagers on the verge of being attacked. Theo sees it too, and is slightly shocked, as this is his first time encountering goblins, and there are a large number of them. As the goblins spot them and quickly identify them as enemies, Theo decides to act before they can attack the village. Without hesitation, he commands Grom to charge directly into the goblins, which it accepts. Theo then instructs the others to jump off Grom on the count of 3. While Layla agrees, Aisha protests, saying it's far too risky. However, since there's no time to waste, they all jump anyway as Grom rushes through the goblin horde. As Theo and the others freefall, Aisha panics and asks what they're going to do now. Theo tells her not to worry, and uses some cloth from his inventory to auto-craft a giant cushion to ensure a safe landing. The plan works. They land safely, though Theo's face ends up wedged between 2 other cushions. This leaves all 3 of them flustered with their faces bright red. Aisha quickly gets up and apologizes, saying she must have been heavy, to which Theo replies that she wasn't. As he begins to say that he should be the one to apologize, they suddenly hear loud goblins' noises. Looking around, they realize they are surrounded. Theo then tells Aisha to wait there, but she is very worried and insists the goblins are dangerous. He acknowledges her concern, but asks her to trust him just this once, promising to save the villagers. Hearing this, Aisha's heart begins to race, and she accepts his request. Blushing, and with steam practically rising from her head, she wonders why her heart is reacting this way when Theo is younger than she is. Then, suddenly, she notices the goblins rushing to attack them, while Layla and Theo prepare to fight. Theo fully opens his inventory and activates Autocraft, while Layla unsheathes her sword to perform her sword technique. Using Autocraft, Theo creates hundreds of swords suspended in the air, preparing to rain them down on the goblins, while Layla swiftly charges through the enemies, eliminating as many as possible. Theo then brings all the swords crashing down onto the goblins, obliterating them into smithereens. Seeing this, the remaining goblins are shocked, with one asking what those 2 even are, while another suggests they retreat and inform their boss. As the goblins begin to flee, Layla attempts to chase after them, but Theo tells her not to, reminding her that their main priority is the villagers' safety, to which she agrees. Wondering if they are truly safe now, the villagers feel relieved that someone has come to save them. One of the villagers then asks Theo who he is, and in response he introduces himself as Theo, and considers leaving it at that. However, realizing that he is here to help them, he understands that he cannot lie. Thus, he reveals his identity, introducing himself as Theodulf Forian, the 3rd prince of the Fornia kingdom and the lord of the land of death. Aisha is surprised to learn that Theo is a prince, while the villagers erupt in chatter, some questioning if he truly is a prince, while others believe it, recalling the strange power he displayed earlier. Seeing their reaction, Theo regrets his decision and thinks that perhaps he should have lied, as the villagers do not generally have a favorable impression of royals or nobles. However, Aisha appears genuinely happy and calling him amazing, tells the others that he really is a prince. As the tone begins to shift, Theo feels relieved that they are accepting him. The villagers then bow to him and thank him for saving them, to which he replies that they do not need to. Besides, they cannot let their guard down, as the boss the fleeing goblins mentioned might still be in the forest. Meanwhile, deep in the forest inside a cave, the goblins who fled the village arrive and inform their boss that those people are too strong and that the village is extremely dangerous. Hearing this, the boss asks the goblin if that is why it ran away. As the goblin lies, claiming it did not flee, the goblin boss strikes it down, calling it a disgrace to goblin kind. It is revealed that their boss is an evolved goblin king, who after hearing about today's events, now plans to put those villagers in their place.